So, let me start off by underlining the fact that this is an opinion piece. I watch, enjoy, and criticize all wrestling companies, and this is in no way a tribalistic or AEW bashing article. No, it's specifically about Jonathan Good and the wrestling characters he portrays. Still listening? Great. I pride myself on having a neutral timeline on social media. I follow extreme WWE fans, extreme AEW fans, and all in between. One theme that seems to reoccur across the board is the general consensus within the IWC that Jon Moxley is the Wrestler of the Year. Now, I get that we all love and appreciate different aspects of the wrestling/sports entertainment business, and that we all have wrestlers that we love, and those that seem popular that we personally just don't get. For me, one of those guys is Mox. His work is so praised within the IWC that I've actually considered him the most overrated wrestler of the year at this point. Every match he has seems to degenerate into walk and brawl. Seemingly every match sees him juice or get color. It kinda needs to end. In 2022, no other form of entertainment in TV or movies requires or displays those that portray the characters that we see actually, and deliberately hurting themselves or one another. I get some like to view wrestling as a sport. I like to suspend my own disbelief when I watch, as it adds to the enjoyment of the product. But let's make no bones about it. All professional wrestling is sports entertainment, unless you're wearing a singlet and headgear and competing in high school gym or Olympic competition. You're not actually taking part in a sport, you're performing. Anyone who doesn't get that in this day and age, as much as we would like to suspend disbelief, is marking out. We don't see actors on Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead blading, or busting each other open the old-fashioned way. They have stunt people for that. Again, it's 2022, not 1982. Actually making yourself or your opponent bleed just isn't cool anymore. In fact, when done on a regular basis, it's far from cool. It's actually pretty sad. Are these entertainers that desperate to get a pop from a bloodthirsty crowd? So desperate that they'll leave their families at home and force themselves to bleed, often in front of 100 people for a couple $100. The more you think about it, the more pity duo it is. There's other ways to entertain. Smoke and mirrors, blood capsules in the mouth, ways that don't actually brutalize a person, who at the end of the day is trying to make a living portraying a character for our entertainment, their own financial gain, and sometimes to satisfy their own self-deprivating compulsions and addictions. That being said, I'm not entirely against someone getting juice in a major feud blow-off on a pay-per-view, but to blade or juice in almost every match you have just isn't what wrestling is about me. Brawling at ringside for the majority of a match just isn't what wrestling should be to me anyway. For the record, I'm not a prude. I loved ECW back in the day, and was even fortunate enough to attend an original ECW show once in 1999 as a 22-year-old. I pop for the violence, I pop for the blood, but with the changes in society and the fact I now have a family, I just don't see that side of wrestling anymore as it was a generation ago. If hardcore wrestling, if blood and guts, if brawling is your thing, then I totally accept why you'd have Mox down as your Wrestler of the Year. He's just not it for me. And that's not to say he hasn't had great matches. I was never a huge fan of his Ambrose character. For me, he was always a great talker despite his complacency. I just never rated him highly as a wrestler. The same can be said for the Mox character. It's just not what I enjoy seeing. That being said, when Jonathan Good actually tried his best to wrestle without the hardcore elements, he can be pretty great. I really enjoyed both his matches against Tony Deppen in GCW and with Tanahashi in New Japan Pro Wrestling at Forbidden Door. If anything though, seeing how good he can be when he puts his mind to it simply reaffirms how overrated he is for lazily overusing the hardcore style, let alone switching it up to mail in his matches and his finisher. And I say that with respect for him and his fans. I'm very much a live and let live kind of guy, and if what he does is your bag, then great, good for you. But for me, many great wrestlers, Mick Foley included, have spoken out in biographies about how a hardcore match is often like a night off. Taking chair shots and using thumbtacks is easier than putting on a display of technical brilliance. Again, Mox's over-reliance on it to enable his thirst for blood to be satisfied just comes across as lethargic, lazy, and the easy. Steve Austin's interview with Ambrose was the first time I realized he had that laziness in him. Steve fired a question about how Dean was going to step up and take things to the next level, like he himself had done. He threw Ambrose a great ball, and Dean fumbled it. Even Austin seemed taken off guard by how unconvincing Dean's reply was. But back to why Mox is my most overrated wrestler of the year. There's two ways you can decide on who your wrestler of the year is. Firstly, you can view things through kayfabe vision, as PWI do with their annual PWI 500. You take into account wins and losses and decide who's had the most consistent wins against the highest level of opposition. The second way of coming up with a wrestler of the year is to view wrestling as pure entertainment. Who's had the most matches that you personally would award 5 stars to? As I previously explained, if you view wrestling as entertainment, then surely why would you bestow such an award on someone who actually hurts themselves and others in a performance environment? Of course, some moves hurt, but it's a wrestler's job to minimize the actual pain whilst maximizing the appearance of it. That's the exact opposite of what Mox specializes in. If you vote for Mox as your wrestler of the year, viewing wrestling as entertainment, then you're voting for your favorite, not the best. Conversely, whilst he's spent 7 to 8 months undefeated in singles competition, aside from victories over Tanahashi, Jericho, and Bryan, every other win he's had has either been against low mid-level competition in large companies or over bigger names in smaller companies that have a majority of us not even watching. So if you're marking out and rating your wrestler of the year by viewing wrestling as a sport, again, there's so many other guys with better, more consistent winning records over a better quality of opponent in companies with more exposure. Either way, to me, Jonathan Good's portrayal of Mox is as overrated as his portrayal of Dean Ambrose. At this point, he's my most overrated wrestler of the year, and that's my hill to die on. Thanks for listening. Once again, remember, this is an opinion piece. I appreciate we all love wrestling and we all enjoy different aspects of wrestling and have different opinions, which I'm happy to respect. I'm simply sharing mine. So until the next hot take, this is Dale, and I was speaking to you with words of my buddy Simon here, but we pretty much share the same sentiment on this. Keep watching WrestleBuddy content and reading the WrestleBuddy reviews and listening each and every day as we pump out more and more content. Until next time.